Hello, hello, dear listeners. Let's do this. So, I want to start this week with a personal story. So, travel back in time with me over a decade ago when I was going through coach training at Georgetown. And it was in session 5 of 6. So, the program at Georgetown has 6 intensives, 19 very full days of deep transformative learning. Um, And I remember in session 5, we were focusing on team coaching, thinking about how to put the practice of coaching into a system perspective. And we were offered a tool. And the tool that we learned was called the thinking path. And that's a tool I'm going to teach you all about today. But the story I wanted to share is what my personal experience was like taking in this tool for the first time. I remember being taught, okay, a thought leads to feeling, leads to actions, leads to results. So I had the conscious incompetence, like, how am I putting this together? How do I break this apart? It felt relatively straightforward. Okay, if I have the thought that I'm not good enough, and when I have the thought that I'm not good enough, it makes me feel bad about myself. So I feel kind of lethargic and um, I'm not good enough. I'm actually really like processing through this. When have the thought I'm not good enough, it kind of makes me feel like I want to curl up and hide, like lethargic, quiet, turning inward. And when I have those feelings of turning inward and really shutting down, the kind of actions I tend to take are I do mind numbing activities. And for me, that might include binge watching a television show. And there's sometimes where this is okay, like, you need to rejuvenate, but I'm talking about doing it in an extreme way where I'm just trying to ignore the thoughts and feelings that I'm having. And as a result, because I am binge watching the television shows, I might be procrastinating on things that actually matter. I might be um, eating eating too much in a mindless way. I'm gaining weight. I'm isolating myself from friends. Like, these are the kinds of behaviors that I could experience. I'm happy to report, dear listeners, this is not how I feel right now, though I am really enjoying rewatching the Gilmore Girls just as a reality check. so, um, but I want you to see, like, taking myself back to over a decade ago, I can remember logically putting those things together and thinking, okay, well, a thought leads to a feeling, leads to an action, leads to a result. Now, I'm going to get more into this tool for all of you in just a moment. So if you're hanging with me on this, and maybe you're hearing it and thinking like, okay, I'm kind of getting what she's saying logically, but feels a little like, how would I use it? How does it fit together? That is in fact how I felt learning this tool. And I'm learning it with the idea that this is a tool that I could use with a coaching client. And so in true Georgetown coaching program fashion, we had to use this tool coaching our peers and we also, flip side, we're coached by our peers. So we're having the experience of being guided through the tool. And this is the thing I wanted to tell you about was the transformative quality of the experience of being guided through this tool. And I still remember my counterpart uh, in the program guiding me through this. And I was having the thing I was being coached on is how might I make a career pivot? So thinking about, is this something I want to do? What would it be like? The reality was, if I really looked within, I knew I wanted to make a career pivot. But as so often happens when we're afraid of something, I say I knew, like, in my heart of hearts, if I close my eyes and shut out the judgments of the world and my own judgments tied into my external desire to please others, I knew I wanted to have a career pivot, but I wasn't ready to declare that yet. And so what I was doing instead was saying, I'm curious for my coaching session about, is this something that I want to do? And now my my coach in training was like, great. And now we're going to use the thinking path to try and learn how to unpack this, because that's what we're here to practice. And as we went through using this tool, I wasn't clear on what is my current thought habit. So it wasn't, and that's often the hard thing. We'll talk more about this. The hard thing about using the thinking path is especially on our own, is are we aware of the triggering thought? But the thing she was able to get me to was I was able to see that, okay, I'm having the intention, not really a thought habit, like I want to launch my own business. So we started there. I'm saying, okay, I want to launch my own business, which is making me feel afraid. And as we started to unpack things, what we actually got to was a deeper thought habit, which is that when this is not a thought habit that I felt like someone who knew me on the outside would have said, oh, this is how Sharon is operating. But the thought habit I realized I had is that I wanted to have affirmation from others. I wanted to receive positive feedback from others. That's what I wanted. And when I wanted to receive positive feedback from others, the way it made me feel is a little anxious. I don't know if I was even would have been able to use that word or that emotion at the time, but from where I sit now, over a decade later, I can say there is an anxiety of like, well, what happens if they don't say I'm doing a good job? And so that desire to get positive feedback from others led me into a feeling of insecurity, anxiety. And from that place of insecurity and anxiety, what I wanted to do was eliminate the possibility that I wouldn't get positive feedback. So the kinds of actions, thought, feeling, actions, the kind of actions I would take would be to work really hard, to overwork, to give more than I even had capacity to do, so that I could make sure I would get positive feedback from others versus setting boundaries, versus being able to say what's feasible and what's not feasible, versus learning a lot of important skill sets that make being a leader at work sustainable, high impact, and sustainable, which is possible, but not when you're guided by this thought habit unconsciously that I was guided by. The results, so thoughts, feelings, actions, results, the results I would get for the overwork and the contribution, et cetera, was I was a really high achiever professionally. Prior to that, in academically, I got really good results. Sometimes with delays because I was committing so much that I might miss a deadline. So it wasn't like, oh, Sharon's done everything perfect every time. Certainly not. But on the whole, I delivered on the results that I said I would do. And I would get positive feedback. I got promoted. I got raises. I was given bigger jobs, and I was really tired. Not all the time. Like I did really love the work I was doing, and I love the work I'm doing now. And it wasn't sustainable. So that's what I learned when I was going through this process for the first time. Now, you can't simply say, okay, well, the thought habit I'm in is I really want positive feedback from others. So my new thought habit should be I don't want positive feedback from others. I have yet to come across a person where simply reversing the thought is something that someone is able to adopt. Like that's usually not genuine for a person. So what happened for me in this particular unpacking of the thought habit was that I didn't jump to, okay, so I did my current state, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. Then I'm looking at desired state, new column, thoughts, feelings, action, results. Well, I actually started with the results that I wanted to have. What I wanted to have was really do high quality, high impact work and also feel sustainable in it. And also maybe do that by starting my own business because that, remember, back to the coaching, the coaching topic, like that's what I was interested in. And so I thought, okay, if what I want is to be able to launch my own business, make this career pivot, and what I want is to do it in a way that is sustainable and delivers high impact work, what kind of actions am I going to take? I'm like, well, I'm going to quit my job. Ooh, paralyzing feeling. I'm going to exit what I'm currently doing at some point, whether it's a staged exit or not, where I go part-time or limited work and then launch, or, I was kind of open to what that could look like. But at some point, I'm going to have to exit what I'm currently doing and enter into something new. And I'm going to have to do it in a way where I have starting points and stopping points. And I'm going to have to be directive of that. Like, I'm going to have to know, if I'm doing my own thing, what is enough work? Who's going to be there to tell me if I'm doing it on my own? And then I thought, okay, well, what kind of feeling am I going to need to have? And I thought, well, I need to have a feeling of confidence and even joy. Like, I'm choosing this. I want to be doing this. And what I finally got to was the new thought habit that I needed to cultivate is, and it wasn't to say I wasn't there at the end of this, 20-minute uh, coaching practice with my colleague. But what I got to was the new thought habit I needed to cultivate was, I am positive feedback for myself. So it was this realization of current way of operating, current thought habit is, I need you, fill in the blank on you, external person, system that I participate in. I need you to validate my worth. I need you to tell me I'm doing a good job. New thought habit is, I need to be able to actually feel I am, my whole being is positive feedback unto itself. That was the shift. That then allowed me to set a personal learning path on what can I do to support me in cultivating a feeling of being positive feedback for myself. So that was the shift. Okay, this is a long-winded entry into why am I teaching you all about the thinking path today? And I'm going to go back to it and break it apart again and give you a chance to think about, how would you use this? But when I think about designing yourself, when I think about you being able to set a vision, this is what I want for the sake of what? Such that you can lead in your life, in work, in all parts of the way you move through the world. You can lead with intention. I am choosing this. It is not happening to me. Doesn't mean it's always sunshine and roses, but I'm choosing it. And ultimately, the actions I take are purposeful. They are aligned with what matters to me. So, that right. If you are designing yourself, a quiet killer for you being able to do what I have just described is your unconscious thoughts. And it is one of the things that I'm always listening for as a coach. Ooh, what are the thought habits? And I'm quite trained now. Like, I pick them up. There's a thought habit. There's a thought habit. I don't always call them forward. Of course, in my own life, it's harder for me to see them. Sometimes I catch them for myself too. The work of coaching myself, a lifelong practice. But when we don't see the thoughts that we have, then we can't pull them out and look at them and gain perspective on them and see whether or not they're working for us. So the ability to see the thought habits at work then allows us to say, and is that working for me or not? And then you can use the thinking path as a tool to break it out. And it might be, gosh, I don't know what the thought habit is, but I do know I keep taking these actions and getting these kinds of results. And let me pull it back and figure out, okay, well, what feelings are at play? What's sparking that feeling? What's my awareness on that? Okay, well, what's the new action I want to be taking, or what's the new result I want to be getting? Play it back up. What's the thought habit that's going to be cultivating that for you? So, why is the thinking path a really amazing tool? It helps pull apart the thoughts that we have such that we can see, is it working for me or not? And when I think about how this connects to our brains, which are an incredible source of wisdom and one source of wisdom, our hearts are another source of wisdom. Our bones are another source of wisdom. Our gut is another source of wisdom. The power of our brain is that it is processing so many things without us thinking about it. What an incredible thing to be able to talk and run, to be able to uh, to build on the learning of our childhood and take it into and expand on it as we age. Amazing that we can do this without thinking about it. So the unconscious thoughts that we're having have such a light side to them and shadow side. We're building a lot of memory and a lot of pathways, neuro pathways that our thoughts are triggering. So I have the thought and I'm like, whoosh, muscle memory. The emotion's happening. I know I'm going to make this move. And I'm not even seeing that it's happening. That's the challenge. And the thinking path helps us break it apart. So let me come back to the thinking path and I want to lay it out again. And this time, I want to invite you to think about, oh, okay, how might I use this? And I hope from my modeling on the top of I was pretty clumsy the first time I was taking this in. And I can remember the first times I used this with clients being, "Ooh, I need a full session to be able to process it." And you can use the thinking path over the course of multiple sessions to really build on it. So it's not like taking a lot of time equals you're not doing it right. And at the same time, now because I've got unconscious competence. So I know how to listen for the thought habits without having to really pay too much attention to it, such that, and I know what the path is and how you can move from one to the other. And I have muscle memory from having used it a lot. I have a lot more facility and I can use it in a lot of different ways. So if you're feeling like, but I can't do that, what I want to say is that's okay. This is the practice and it's a tool, it's a tactic to help you in the practice of breaking apart the way that you are thinking about things so that you aren't a slave to it, that you see that there is a choice. You can break it apart. So, thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions, lead to results. Here is my primary guidance on the moves you can make with the thinking path. You start with, here is my current state, and fill in the blanks that you know. I often like to go through, well, here's the thought or the feeling. Oftentimes, when we're doing it on our own, the thing we're clear on is, well, I'm feeling this way. Maybe I don't know the thought. That's okay. When I feel this way, what kind of actions do I tend to take? What kind of results do I tend to get? If you can get to the thought habit on your own, or maybe phone a friend, phone a coach, phone a colleague, great. But even if you do the feelings on down, like you're learning something, then flip over to the desired state. And I like to lay it out in columns, 3 columns. Column 1, just laying out thoughts, feelings, actions, result. Then at the top of column 2, we've got current state. At the top of column 3, we've got future, desired state. And now again, it's rare that it's like, well, the thought habit I want to cultivate is this. It might be, you might be saying, I want to have the thought that I can make a change. Great. You might want that thought. But usually we're seeing, I want these new results, or I'd like to feel this new, I'd like to feel confident instead of insecure. Okay. Well, what thought has you feel that way? So my recommendation is start by cozying up to the reality of what is current state, and then jump over to desired state and just break it apart. And you will have heard me use on this podcast before the example of my dear friend and one of my very first coaching clients who really wanted to cultivate a feeling of being unstoppable. And the thought habit that he got to that made him feel unstoppable was, I am water. Amazing. Like, powerful. Not all of us are that poetic. That's really authentic for that person. Um, I'm going to do one last quick example. of what this could look like in practice. And this is one that I thought of for myself. So this is like real time, fast forward to present day, Sharon. And I noticed started thinking like, what are some of the thoughts that could be getting in my way right now? So this was me just getting curious. You too can get curious for yourself. And when I got curious, I thought, okay, maybe I'm having the thought, a thought that could be getting in my way is I could have done more. And then I thought, that's me being polite about the thought. I think the thought is more like I should be doing more. So not I could have done more, but I should be doing more. And when I said that, even as I say it now, I'm like, ooh, my heart gets a little bit tingly. I'm like, yep, that's a real thought. And for me, I'm very sensitive to body indication. So my body gives me goosebumps, or my heart has an emotion, or I feel a tingling in my shoulders or a weight in my legs. And I'm like, oh, I can discern what that means. You will have your own indications of is it real or not. I'm telling you, if you create quiet around it, you will know, is this thought real? So for me, current real thought, I should be doing more. And when I admit to myself that I have the thought, I should be doing more, the feeling that I get or feelings are I feel embarrassed. I'm like so judgy of myself. Why am I feeling this way? Like I know better. I'm a coach. I coach people on this. Of course I know I don't have to do everything and that I need to set boundaries. But so I'm embarrassed. I'm both am having the thought and I'm embarrassed about having the thought. And I'm disappointed in myself. Why haven't I figured out how to do more? Like that's the honest truth. So I'm disappointed and I'm embarrassed. Now, so I should be doing more. There's a thought. Feeling embarrassed and disappointed. And when I feel embarrassed and disappointed, there's two primary pathways of actions that I take, and they're different. But I immediately saw myself, I'm like, oh, here's two primary ways that I move when I'm feeling disappointed and embarrassed. One is I go into hiding. It's what I affectionately refer to as like, I'm pulling up the hoodie hood and I'm hiding. I think I've said this before. I don't really wear hoodies very often, if at all. But somehow when I see myself in hiding, I'm always imagining myself in a hoodie and the hoodie's pulled over and such that you can't see my eyes. Like I'm literally trying to disappear. As a result, when I take a hiding stance where I try and get small and hope no one notices, please don't see me. The result I get is that I'm isolated and I'm without help because I'm not asking for help. No one's a mind reader. No one knows that they could be helping me. And so I'm alone. That's a real, that's a real thing that happens. The other action that I take when I'm feeling disappointed and embarrassed is that I dig in and say, I'm going to do more. Like I can fix this problem. So it's rather than the hider, it's the doer. Here we go. Let's go. And when I dig in and do more, guess what? I get stuff done. And I feel tired. Like I'm exhausted. It doesn't feel sustainable. So, and by the way, as I'm saying this, I just have to, I'm like, what's moving outside my window? Don't worry, friends, just some deer walking by. So, sorry, brief, real time distraction. Thank you, dear, for that disruption to my stepping into like this real feeling of disappointment, embarrassment, digging in and doing more, and then feeling like, yeah, I do more and I get more done. Um, and guess what? It doesn't eliminate the thought of I should be doing more. So I'm in the spin cycle of like just keep acting, but I still feel like I should be doing more. And I'm feeling embarrassed. So I'm going to dig in and do more, and I still feel like I should be doing more. Right? You see this vicious cycle. So the move is then to say, well, how do I want to feel? That's where I feel drawn in. And what I want is to feel strength. That's what I want to feel. I want to be taking actions like riding my Peloton, riding with Miss Allie Love. And when she asked me, are you saying yes or yes to this? I'm like, yes. That's the feeling. I want strength. Like I'm riding with Allie, or um, I'm taking time to play go fish with my 5-year-old. Those are the kinds of actions I want to see. And I know what is enough and I am doing that in my work. So and I can kind of hold and I can move, not a perfect balance of this is what this day will look like or that day will look like. But I take agile actions and am really present to what is needed now. And as a result, I do get a lot done and I take care of myself while I do it. So then the question I ask myself in all of that is, so what would prompt me to say, by the way, I'm doing this I thought of my current state before I got on the podcast. This future state I'm doing live. So I want you to say like, here's the wheels turning. Okay, so what would be a thought that would prompt me to feel strong? Now I'm sitting with this. What would be a thought that would prompt me to feel strong? Let me listen. The first thing that popped for me was just in it's not always this clearly connected, but for me, I first heard, I can do this. And then it got replaced with, we can do this. Like it doesn't feel solitary. So when I have the thought, like, we can do this, then I feel strong. I feel like I'm not alone. I feel supported and independent. I feel both simultaneously able to act on my own and act in a collective, act with others. Feels good. And I can see how that would support me in flowing and being agile and taking when to do which actions in the whole of what's important. And that would get me those results I want. And actually for me, just saying that, I'm like, oh, I feel some lightness. And this is breaking apart the habit and of the thought habit of I should be doing more. This, my friends, is not a new thought habit for me. This is again, I think that lifelong practice of, oh, there you are again. How do I need to reframe it? So even just reframing it for me immediately feels like I can tap into that thought of like, not I should be doing more, but we can do this. And who am I asking for help? And what am I saying yes to? And what am I saying no to? Move from there. When I talked about before, like I need to be positive feedback for myself, like I am positive feedback for myself. That was not an easy thought for me to be like, oh, now I see it. Let me shift. There, I had to do real work around how do I tap into that? How can I lead with that? Not better or worse, but I just noticed the difference. Okay, my friends, that is what I wanted to share with you today. And gosh, what a joy to be here with you. I want you to know that I am hopeful that you will walk away from today's podcast and really cozy up to the truth of your own thoughts. And maybe think about someone you know who maybe could use help on breaking apart their own thoughts. Maybe this is something you could share with them. It's a real tool that you can use. Maybe it's just prompting for you an aha. Beautiful. No matter where you are, please know I would love to hear from you. Maybe you are looking for support. Maybe you just want to celebrate your success. Please know if you go over to pointroadstudios.com and you reach out to me there, I will read your message. I will respond to it and I will delight in it. So please know I would welcome, welcome, welcome hearing from you. And until next time, know that I believe deeply that you are creative, resourceful, and whole, that you will find your path forward, and that I will be holding for you my own deeply held belief that there is nothing stopping you. So go on ahead and get after whatever it is that you really want.